Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NetElixir webinar series. I know it's only August, but surprise, we are talking about the holidays today, and we're going to be sharing with you some of our holiday search marketing tactics. Now, we're really excited about this presentation, and we actually hope to put the present back in presentation for you. Let me jump right into our agenda. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Manish Mohan, our Director of Paid Media, to discuss some of his favorite holiday hacks. First, we'll be going over some of the holiday trends we've seen that are going to be approaching in 2018. We'll then go into some of Manish's favorite SEM hacks. We'll then talk a little bit about a preview of the holiday readiness initiatives that we have in place here. And finally, we'll end with your questions. Again, I do encourage you all, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the panel throughout the presentation. That way, towards the end of the webinar, we'll be able to go over everything in a seamless way. Now, before we get started, as always, I want to share a little bit about NetElixir for those of you who aren't familiar with us. NetElixir is a search marketing agency that helps retailers and e-commerce brands find and acquire new customers online. Our mantra is decoding what makes people click. So we're not just interested in the core stats like CPCs and impressions. Instead, we're interested in understanding who your customers are, what motivates them to buy, and how we can use this information to help you grow your sales online. We offer paid search services, SEO, display marketing, paid social, Amazon marketplaces, and various marketing technology solutions. We work with some of the largest and most iconic retail brands from everywhere from food to fashion, and have clients that include folks like Lenovo, Teleflora, Ashley Stewart, Century 21, Corel Brands, and over 100 others. We're composed of over 130 employees across 3 global offices, and we're proud partners with Google, Bing, and GPS. Now, I know some of you might be asking, well, why are we talking about the holidays now? And one thing that we've seen in the past 14 plus years of business is that clients that start preparing for the holidays today are the most successful. So we make sure to always start ramping our customers up at the end of the year or at the end of the summer, so that way by the end of the year, they exceed their sales goal. A little self-patting on the back, our customers have beaten the industry average nearly 3x over the past 6 years. And you can see that breakdown of our client growth versus the NRF average e-commerce growth. So we do believe that we are more than qualified to start talking to you about the holiday season today. And one last note before we really jump into things, I did want to share with you a program we're introducing today, and that's our holiday readiness resources for retailers. This has been featured in Adweek, and eMarketer, and Internet Retailer last year, and has always been a very successful program to help prepare all of you for the holiday season. I highly encourage you to check out netelixir.com/holidays, where you can download our holiday readiness workbook. You could check out our upcoming webinars that revolve around the holidays. You can download our search marketing calendar, and you can even sign up for one of our free one-on-one clinics. So check out netelixir.com/holidays. We look forward to helping you win this holiday season. But that's enough for me. I think what you're all here for are some of these search hacks. So now I'll pass the microphone over to Manish, and he'll run through them with you.
Thanks, Steve. Before we really get into specific hacks, I wanted to focus on 4 key trends that we feel might be super important this holiday season. And I'm pretty sure the 4 things that you see on the slide right now is something that everyone who's attending this webinar is definitely thinking about. Ones like mobile commerce have been out there for a while, and I assume that most of you have figured out how well can you optimize your mobile presence. Things like voice search are still in early stages. Voice commerce especially is in its early nascent stages, and not many brands have figured out what exactly do they want to do on that front. Amazon's growth as a discovery engine is exciting as well as scary for some brands. It's all the more the reason if you are not on Amazon today, do you really want to stay away from it and let the whole brand experience be taken for a ride? I would rather recommend that you have some presence there so that if one of your existing customers goes to Amazon looking for your brand, you at least have some control over what they've experienced there. And the last topic, something that has been in the news recently for a couple of reasons, Facebook. We've seen that the CPMs associated with Facebook, the CPCs, have been on the rise. And the reach that some of the brands are seeing on Facebook has also been on the decline. This means a lot of things for the holiday season, as your Facebook campaigns might get more competitive, and you might need to have a razor sharp optimization strategy to make Facebook work this year. Those are just the overlying themes for this holiday season. We'll now get into some specific hacks from a search perspective. And the first one that I wanted to focus on is about a local strategy. And the reason this is extremely important this year is again because of the big beast, Amazon. Amazon essentially does some things very clear, right? They make it very simple to shop, they get the pricing right, and they make the shipping and delivery really easy. If you really think about it, if each of the brands in the webinar today, if you guys have a local showroom or if you have multiple fulfillment centers, can you really be the Amazon for your local customers? Let's say you want to own a 5 mile or a 10 mile radius around your showrooms or your fulfillment centers. That might be a good strategy for the holiday season to get started with. You will still have your national campaigns, but considering the level of competition that you're expected to face this year, it might be a good approach to own these local regions and have a bigger strategy for every other location. And that also requires that you look at each region differently. Most brands have a blended ROAS goal for the whole country. It makes absolutely no sense because every region has some local nuances. There are cultural factors that influence shopping behavior, the time to convert, and even the day-parting trends. The kind of traffic on your website that you see in New York at 6 in the evening could be entirely different from the kind of traffic that you see at the same time in a place like Ohio. The factors might be multiple, but what is more important is that are you factoring these into your paid search strategy? Are there locations that fall under your ground shipping map wherein you can afford to go ahead and offer faster shipping, or maybe even have a different ROI goal for these locations? This will essentially mean that the areas that fall closer to your fulfillment centers get an advantage, and you end up having a specific ROI metric developed for these regions. Other aspects like creating a competitor campaign again around your showroom so that any customer who searches for a national brand who is probably only online cannot offer what you can offer to your customer. Things like same day delivery, maybe a same day pickup in your showroom, or maybe even an in-person interaction with your showroom staff. These are easy things that you can use from a location perspective. There are also some sales stack implications that you can use to your advantage. When you talk about locations, it's not just your location as a brand that matters. What is more important is your customer's location. And considering how crazy it gets in Q4, your customers are online shopping practically 24/7. And one of the flaws that we have found in the current paid search platforms is that every setting that you have in place from a day parting perspective considers your account's time zone. It does not factor in where your customer is. This is a big call out for the holiday season. Before you even get into the peak weeks, either alter your day parting bits so that customers across multiple time zones are equally exposed to your ads, or maybe even remove them if you want to get super aggressive and ensure a 24/7 presence for all your campaigns. That's all on the location front. which brings us to the next topic, which is all about averages. And I'll now invite Steve back here to give you a small story around that.
Thank you. This is one of my favorite stories. It's in a few books I've read. You can Google it. I'll send the link out after. But in the late 1940s, the U.S. Air Force was having a serious problem, and it was that they were losing planes and pilots at an alarming rate. Right? At one point, they had over 17 pilots crash in a single day. They were trying to figure out what's wrong here. Why are we losing so many good people in our planes? So I won't go into the deep details, but it turns out when they first designed the planes about 2 decades earlier, they wanted to standardize the cockpit. They wanted one cockpit that was comfortable for everyone. So what did they do? They measured several hundred pilots. They found the average arm length, the average leg length, the average distance from the head to the headrest, and they compiled all these numbers, found an average, and created a single cockpit that could accommodate any of their pilots. But it turns out that trusting the averages was the worst thing they could have done. Back to the 40s, when they started to look at this data, they started comparing all of their active pilots against this ideal pilot, if you will, the one with all the averages. And what did they find? After comparing hundreds and hundreds of pilots to this ideal pilot, they realized not a single person had the exact measurements of the average pilot. Not a single person had any of all the same. And in fact, only a few people even had more than 3 traits in common. So what did they do? They found that instead of building one seat to rule them all, instead they had to design a cockpit that could accommodate variations of different pilots. How did they solve it? They started creating levers and adjustments and moving parts so that no matter what the pilot's body type was, they could adjust the cockpit and customize it to themselves so that way they would be more comfortable in flight. What was the result? A drastic decline in accidents and a drastic decline in the most important factor of human deaths. And that's just one story that illustrates the flaw of averages.
Thanks, Steve. I love that story. And those cockpits are nothing different from the goals that brands set on every digital marketing campaign. And that again translates into the fundamental flaw in the concept of averages. A quick example here. Let's consider an apparel retailer. You have dresses, handbags, and shoes on your website. Currently, your in-house team or your agency might be optimizing every single category, every single campaign that you have towards a blended goal of a 5x ROI. When you actually get into each category and look at additional metrics like returns, average order value, number of orders per customer in a year, and most importantly, your category level margins, it's a whole different story. A dress that gets you a 20% return versus a handbag that typically has a lower return rate of 5% cannot be optimized towards one ROI goal. If you're doing that, you are overlooking some key elements here. And at the end of it, the blended goal may still be attained, but if you really look at the P&L, it may not be the story that you really want to see. And with that, what we want to encourage you to do, not just for the holiday season, but as an ongoing practice, is to push your in-house teams, your digital marketing teams, and even your agencies, and challenge them with multiple business metrics. Let's not make it easy for any one of us, right? One metric is really easy to hit. Let's make it more complicated, and let's actually look at multiple business metrics. Let's look at margins for each category. Let's look at return rates by channel and by category. Have you ever imagined that maybe Google Shopping campaigns tend to have a lower return rate because customers who come into Google Shopping are typically lower funnel and they have probably made up their mind as to what exactly they want to buy. Whereas a customer who's acquired through a non-brand campaign, probably upper funnel, has a higher probability to return products that they bought online. Can this simple fact influence the goals that you set? Because Google Shopping has a lower return rate, can you actually lower the last click ROI for that campaign and get more qualified customers in? And maybe on the other hand, increase your goals for the non-brand campaign because you do anticipate a bunch of them to come back. Repeat purchase. Again, a very critical element, not really looked at by most brands at a campaign level. What exactly is a repeat purchase frequency for each customer? Do you really segment your customers into multiple tiers based on their purchase frequency? And once you segment them, how do you treat them differently when they come back on search? If you know that a customer has a low purchase frequency, do you prioritize them more or do you deprioritize them the next time they are on search? There is no right or wrong way to do it. Depends on the category that you are in, depends on the average order value, and if it's really worth pushing that much to get that customer back again. Cost per new customer. I think it's really time that we move beyond CPO, CPA based goals or R by C based goals. The most important contribution of paid search in the whole digital marketing ecosystem is that it has the ability to drive new customers on a consistent basis. If your paid search programs are not driving at least 25 to 30% of new customers on your website, then paid search is not working well. Even if it has a 10x ROI or a 20x ROI, it has to drive new customers. It's only when your paid search programs do that can your other channels be sustainable, especially your email programs. Which takes me to the last point, something that we have championed with our existing clients is how exactly do you monitor the shift in revenue share across your categories? And what that essentially means is that at the end of the holiday season, you may feel that you had a great holiday with a 20% or a 30% year over year revenue increase. But if a bulk of that came from your low margin categories, does that really mean a lot for the business? Not really. And this is something that we have championed, as I said, and discussed with our clients, wherein we try to get the revenue share from their high margin categories as of today, and then set multiple goals at the end of the holiday season that for category A, which is high margin, we want to take it from 10% to a 13% revenue share. Whereas for some of the other categories, probably based on the margins, the volume, or even the popularity of the category, we probably want to pull back on the revenue share intentionally. You would realize that with all these metrics, you're talking about making paid search more complex. And that will be the case. You are looking at replicating a couple of assets. So your account asset size will go up. But at the end of the day, you'll be looking at data which is more concrete and more conclusive. Holiday season is a time when you get a lot of new customers. I'm sure every brand has that story. So I kind of want all of you to kind of go back a couple of years or maybe a couple of months, depending on how old you are, and just imagine, how your first date went. I really hope it wasn't something like, it's you see here on the slide. And I hope it was one where, both of you were really engaged with each other. If you really think about your brand and the customers that you're trying to win online, any new customer that you acquire, the effort that goes into convincing them about your brand, your story, and your product is nothing less challenging than your first date. It's all about that impression that you make on that first engagement. So if you now think of your first date again, assuming that some of you may not have had a great first date, and if you were to go back and make some things right, if you were to change some things about that first date, what would that be? Maybe you would have chosen a different place. Maybe you would have chosen a different dress for that day. Or maybe you would have chosen a different conversation to have. Now go back to your customers. Think of your customers, think of your business, and do exactly the same. Think of how exactly can you make that first interaction special. Holidays and Q4 is a time when you will end up acquiring a ton of new customers. Are all of them equally qualified? Most definitely no. But if there are few of them who are likely to become long-term customers, how exactly can you make that first interaction special? If they come to Google and search for one of your top selling categories, ensure that you show them a product which is likely to give them the best brand experience. And these things may not always be backed by data. The top seller that you choose may not be your top seller from a volume perspective. It's for some reason the product that is bound to give you a long-term customer. For new customers on search, definitely ensure that you have some presence on shopping ads and text ads. And the reason for that is shopping ads are great to get customers down the funnel. They replicate the marketplace experience like you would see on Amazon. And it's a great strategy to get conversions in. But for a new customer who has never heard of your brand, imagine what they can learn about you by just seeing at a PLA ad. They might see a great product image, they might see a great price and your brand name. That's pretty much it. They cannot learn anything about your brand. And that is where text ads can never be replaced by shopping ads for the brand tone. So for your new customers, make sure that you have multiple campaigns and you earn more of the search space. For a returning customers, maybe shopping ads might just do it. You may not have to even spend on a text ad and just let shopping ads do the job. And for some of you who can do it, throw in a few extras. Make that first engagement special. Holidays are a time when your end customers are actually shopping from multiple retailers. Your product or your brand is not the only thing on their mind. So it's important that your order stands out and has something that wants to make them come back probably next year or even the next holiday season. I hope we all had customers who look like this, who are so passionate about our brand. But unfortunately, with the advent of mobile and with the choices that we have, customers are not really loyal to a brand anymore. They are loyal only to the moment. So when they have a need, they go online and whatever fits their needs at that point in time, they might switch to that, which throws up a couple of new surprises for all the brands. And the most important is to throw away the assumptions that we generally have about an existing customer. Most common, we don't need paid search to bring them back. They must convert at a better ROI. They already know my brand really well. Their buying patterns have not really changed. So they should come back organically to my website, or they should remember to just go to my website directly. What we must remember is, especially in Q4, there is so much noise out there. There are so many other alternative brands out there who are trying to win their attention. They may not succeed in grabbing their attention, but they might succeed in distracting your existing customer and make them forget about your brand. And that is the reason why you have to ensure that your retention programs are in place and do not assume that your existing customers will come back to you. And how do you do that? Ensure that you keep surprising your customers. And this is not really a search tactic. This can be extended to your shipping strategy. This can be extended to your packaging or even every other channel that you have. And the reason for that is holidays make online orders very transactional just due to the large volume. And what was the last, when was the last time that you saw a box from Amazon on your doorstep and you were excited? I mean, you know what is expected. You know exactly the time, the minute, and the second Amazon is going to deliver it. But when you opened it, you saw the product. Was there anything beyond that that Amazon did? They cannot, because they are dealing with a massive volume. But probably some of you can, because you have a finite set of customers and you know who they are and what they love about your brand. So do something that makes these orders memorable. Maybe acknowledge milestones like the 10th order or the moment the customer hit $500 in total orders. It's possible that that milestone just happened to be during the holiday season. Might be a coincidence, but acknowledge that, call it out. And most importantly, treat your existing customers like a new customer occasionally. And that correlates really well to the paid search strategy, where you may have a lot of campaigns around new customers and returning customers. And it's a common approach that you set aside some promotions exclusively for new customers, which is a great strategy, and it has worked for every client that we have tried it with. But at what point do you stop considering an existing customer as a returning buyer? If it's been 12 months since they ordered from your website, are they still an existing buyer? Or if it's been 24 months, is it safe to exclude them from all the promotional strategy that you do during the holiday season? Again, the 6 month, the 12-month period varies. I cannot comment on that. But go back and look at your data file, your customer file. Customers who have not engaged with your brand, take a call. If it's more than 6 months, more than 12 months, let's surprise them either on search or email or any channel that you reach out to them. I think in the search world, we are always trying to convince our customers, right? We are trying to convince them about our brand, about our USPs, about our shipping advantages, and just the fact that you need to keep coming back to us. And I think all the campaigns essentially are designed to do that. I just want to take a moment here, and I hope most of you can recognize what this is. If not, then you may have to go back to your math classes from, I don't know which grade, but this is something that you might have seen in your school math lessons. It's the sign for a subset. And I wanted to kind of call out this concept wherein we have to start differentiating between retention and retargeting. I've seen a lot of clients use this as just one and the same, and they call a campaign a retargeting campaign and also retention campaign at the same time. These are two different things. Retention is a subset of retargeting. And the reason for that is your retargeting campaigns could be going after every single visitor who's been to your website. But retention is exclusively for someone who has converted on your website before and is now also part of a retargeting pool based on their most recent site interaction. A very common assumption again is that retargeting campaigns should have a higher ROAS. I completely agree with that argument as long as you're talking only about existing customers. If you've already spent some amount to acquire them in the first place, they've engaged with your brand, they've used your products, and they're back, they should definitely convert at a higher ROI. But if it's a new customer who has never heard of your brand before, landed on your website 2 days back, checked out some products, maybe even added a bunch of products to the cart and abandoned it, you cannot assume that they're as qualified as your existing customer. So to get them back in the funnel and to get them all the way to checkout, you still need to invest some money in there, especially during Q4. So start segmenting your retargeting campaigns into new and returning customers. There are certain restrictions on Google AdWords platform that will not allow you to do this in the full scale. As an example, customer match cannot be applied to some of the display campaigns, which is fine. But within the constraints that you have right now in AdWords, please make sure that you start looking at retargeting from this perspective. And to make it more targeted, set separate goals. If it's a new visitor who abandoned a high value product category, set them at the highest priority. If it's a returning visitor and in a low value category, let's say they bounce up from the category page, maybe deprioritize them. I would not recommend leaving them out of the funnel, but just in the overall scheme of things, if you really need a priority scale, I would go after that new visitor from a high value category first, and then a returning visitor from a low value category. The biggest theme that has been coming out in the whole search world or even in the digital marketing world is that segmentation is becoming obsolete. And the reason for that is AI. I'm sure everyone has heard about it because that's just the buzzword now. I don't really know if everyone knows how exactly it helps us. There's a lot of technology out there that is helping us know our customers better. The old school principle was proactively segment your customers and have a strategy for each of those segments. A quick example is I might look at the last 12 months data in my Google AdWords account, and I see that customers in New York convert at a great ROI, which is well above my account goal. Sounds good. I go ahead and bid 30% higher on New York as a location. Now that plainly assumes that every single customer in the New York area is worth investing more, which is not always the case. There could be a lot of customers in the same locality who are probably at a point in their buying cycle where they're not as much qualified as some of the other ones are. That is where signalization becomes really important. What are those user signals that indicate the context of each customer? They might look similar from a demographic perspective. They might look similar from a location, from an income targeting perspective. But in terms of their personal roadmap, they are probably at two different points in the journey to buying that particular product. And that kind of leads to a lot of discussions around personalization on the website and on search. I'll stick to the search part because that's what we deal with. It's essentially all about me, right? If you really think about the customer, they expect personalized results. We work with a couple of companies in the cosmetic space. And one of the interesting highlights that our partners at Google told us was that one of the most popular searches this year in the same space was best face primer for me. And so you are now talking about a situation where customers actually expect Google to know what kind of a skin type do you have. Do you have a dry skin or an oily skin? And then go ahead and recommend products that suit my particular skin type. And on one end, you have people complaining about privacy with Facebook. Those are just two sides of the same coin. But you have to ensure that your search campaigns are altered to address this particular trend. And that is exactly what led to a feature called responsive search ads by Google earlier this year. You may have had 3 or 5 ads in every ad group in your campaign. If you think about a context where 20 people in the same locality are searching for the word flowers on Google, can you really assume that all of them are looking for exactly the same thing? The search term is just the same word, but they might be in different contexts. And that is the reason why responsive search ads have become super important. And the other component there is the device that you have. As of 2017, there were 79 different device sizes in the market, just under smartphones. Imagine having 3 ads that are a good fit for every single device based on the screen size. You just cannot do it. And that is why RSAs or responsive search ads will be really useful this holiday season, wherein you give up to 15 headlines and multiple description lines to Google and let the system determine based on the user's context and the device type as to which ad copy will be the best fit. Other elements like in-market audiences and auction-based bidding will also be super important because the reason is you may have a great manual bidding strategy today, which has been working well, maybe for the last 5 or 10 years. But the fact is, if your competitor has already switched to auction-based bidding, they are in a much better place to detect the user's context and show them a more relevant ad or a more relevant listing. That is where you might lose out if you do not switch to automated bidding well before the holidays and let the system gather some data. So those are some of the trends that we see happening this year, and I hope those insights definitely help you fine-tune your holiday campaigns in the next 1 or 2 months before we really dive into the November period.
Ladies and gentlemen, give a virtual round of applause. That is our Sultan of Search, our Pied Piper of PPC, and our Director of Digital Media, Manish Mohan, always sharing things on the cutting edge. I encourage you, I see a few questions coming in. Please share them now. In the next minute, we'll go into those. But I did want to remind you, please, again, check out our netelixir.com/holidays. If you want to schedule a one-on-one holiday clinic with Manish or someone of an equal standing to him in our company, we are scheduling those now. You could check it out there. Or if you prefer a little lower touch, come by, check out our workbooks, calendars, webinars, and other things. All right, let me jump into a couple of your questions before we close up shop for the day. Let's see. The first one comes from Heather. Oh, this is interesting. Heather's asking about the new Supreme Court ruling on sales tax and how it affects some of the local things you talked about. I'm going to let Manish touch that one. That's a little too much for me.
Sure. So that's one of the most recent events that were to uncover in the e-commerce world, and we do expect some more details to be rolled out on that in the upcoming months. But the overall theme is that online retailers will be expected to pay sales tax to any state that they're shipping to, irrespective of whether they have a physical presence there or not. This will definitely help all of you out there who are on the brick and mortar format, but anyone who is only online, you may have to start factoring that into your overall P&L, because it will definitely have an impact on the overall bottom line numbers that you start seeing.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you, Manish. Keith is asking us, what's your opinion on dynamic landing pages?
That is definitely one of the most interesting features to be rolled out by Google. Dynamic search ads have been there for a while, and we've had a great run with it. I personally not tested dynamic landing pages yet, but as far as we have learned at the Google Marketing Live earlier this year, it is definitely expected to help smaller retailers who choose to go with the smart campaigns that Google is expected to launch pretty soon, wherein you let Google know that this is the overall objective that we have for the campaign, and it's a 100% automated campaign. Outside of that, for the larger retailers, I would still recommend having more control over your landing pages. And the only reason for that is if there are specific pages on your website where you have a good history in terms of conversion rate and bounce rate, that will be an integral element when it comes to quality score. And you would not want to mess with that, especially in the holiday season when your CPCs are already undergoing a lot of fluctuation. And anything that has to do with the dynamic landing pages, if it leads to a bad user experience, could have a detrimental impact on the overall CPCs. Hope that answers.
Right, that did. And let's see, we have one more here. Dan was asking, what are your thoughts on all the latest AI changes, and how do you think they compare to manual bidding?
Right. That is a tricky one because I do have two opinions on it. We have tested this exclusively across most of our clients, and we've seen mixed results. That's just the blunt feedback. And the reason for that is smart bidding or any AI-based algorithm depends a lot on the size of the data set. Any small account, spending, let's say, $10,000 a month or $15,000 a month, the data that you have there may not be enough for the system to make any conclusive decisions. The larger your data set, it is bound to work better. That's just one opinion upfront on the smart bidding platforms. Among all the different smart bidding options that Google provides today, enhanced CPC is the least risky and the most successful one as of today. And the reason for that is the target ROAS and the target CPA methods work better with unlimited budgets, especially the target ROAS one. And one big challenge that a lot of retailers have been facing is that none of the existing smart bidding technologies seem to be able to handle holiday fluctuations. So if you suddenly have a 2x or a 3x surge in your traffic, let's say between the week before Black Friday and the week after that, we are not so sure if smart bidding will be able to handle that. Google is working on some solutions there, wherein there will be a manual override that will be added to some of the smart bidding technologies, but that is not something that might come out this year. So for the holiday season, if you have not tested smart bidding, at least let's say 2 to 3 months before the month of November, I would not recommend switching smart bidding on in the holiday season. You would rather be better off doing manual bidding at that point. But if you have data that supports a solid case for smart bidding, then I think it should definitely work. But a manual intervention should definitely be there if things go crazy, let's say around Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
Yes, agree with that. And we have one here, more of a Google specific question. We recently switched to the new Google Ads format. I've noticed some bugs. What's your take on the new interface?
It's It's a new interface, so I think any new rollout is expected to have some issues there. I would recommend that the new format does open up a lot of new opportunities as well. From a usability perspective, there are definitely a lot of bugs that we have been encountering, but I would highly recommend using the Insights card that Google has launched. They also now have an optimization score for your overall account, which is a great place to do a quick check on some low-hanging fruits in the account. And the Insights card can actually give you insights into new search terms that are showing up, specific keywords where you have fallen below the organic listings. These are some quick wins that Google has added to the new interface.
Great, thank you. And it looks like we're hugging up right to the 2:45 end mark. So I did want to thank everyone for joining us today. Please tune in early September when we go over our holiday forecasts, where we will be sharing all of our insights from back to school data, as well as predicting where we think the holiday season will go. And again, please feel free to reach out if you'd like a one-on-one with someone like Manish at netelixir.com/holidays. Thank you all. We look forward to speaking with you on our next webinar in September, and hope you all enjoy this last month of summer. Thanks.